Hi, welcome to Sewing with Threads, the monthly podcast by the staff of Threads magazine. I'm your host, editorial director, Sarah McFarland, and I'm joined by our senior technical editor, Carol.
Hi.
And our guest today is Jenny Rushmore. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Sarah. Carol, nice to see you guys. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Thank you for being on with us. Jenny is the founder of Cashmerette, which empowers curvy women to feel confident through sewing a wardrobe of fabulously fitting clothes. Cashmerette began as a blog in 2010 when Jenny had the realization that she didn't have to change her body to fit clothes. She could change clothes to fit her body. That led to the launch of Cashmerette Patterns in 2015, the first modern body-positive sewing patterns to come in sizes 0 to 32 and cup sizes C to H. Jenny, you're a new guest for us, so we're going to ask you 5 questions to get you to know you better as a sewer. How did you learn to sew?
I was going through a breakup, feeling miserable, needed to do something, and thought I will take a sewing class. I took a sewing class. It was terrible. It wasn't very good. But I was immediately totally transfixed by the concept of being able to sew. And the rest is history. I got obsessed.
What are you currently sewing?
I am currently sewing a sample for our next pattern release that's coming out. It's very excited. I am color blocking pastels in linen. It's pretty cool.
Sounds very cool. What type of fabric do you enjoy sewing the most?
I love sewing with wool because I think my favorite thing to sew is outerwear. I just enjoy like how malleable and sort of pliable it is. And I feel like it's pretty easy to get a good result.
What sewing word or term is your favorite?
That's a good one. I think grain line. I think it's like underestimated, and it's very important, and it's there. And if you get it wrong, it'll all mess up. So it's an important one.
And please share with us what you love best about sewing.
The thing I like most about sewing is being able to sew clothes that, 1, fit me really well, and 2, actually express my personality. Because I feel like before I learned to sew, I was in a prison of, cold-shouldered, butterfly-printed monstrosities that stores thought my body deserved. And now I'm pleased that I can give my body exactly what I want.
Thank you. Well, we want to talk to you today, Jenny, about Cashmerette, and I want to learn a little bit more about your own sewing and what you like to do. So for any of our listeners who aren't familiar with your pattern line, could you tell us more about the company?
Sure. So as you mentioned a little bit in my intro, I really started Cashmerette out of a need that I had. So when I started sewing in about 2010, there was actually almost no plus size sewing patterns available. So a few big 4 ones would go up, and I would find that I was in like the size 24, which made no sense to me because I'm size 14. And a lot of the indie pattern companies, like I would be the biggest size that they had. But on top of that, and in some ways more problematically, they were mostly drafted for a B cup or a 2-inch differential between high bust and full bust, and I'm an H, which is a very long way from a B. So I started sewing, and I immediately found that the same issue that I had with ready-to-wear clothing, which is I could never find something that fit me, I was having the same issue in sewing patterns. So I set up the blog, and I learned to alter patterns, and I learned the full bust adjustment and how to do grading between sizes and things like that. But I kept on having at the back of my head, I know I'm not the only person. And at the time, I don't think I realized this, but now I know 68% of American women are plus size. So people talk about, oh, it's great that you have this niche pattern company. It's like, I'm not the niche, right? I'm the majority of the market. Actually, if you stop at a 12, you're in a niche because most women are not smaller than a 12. So I learned how to do this, but I just thought, why should I have to spend hours and hours adjusting every single thing? And also, I'm literally the size of the average American woman. So if you're larger than me, which a large number of people are, then you're totally excluded. So that's why in 2015, I launched Cashmerette Patterns, which at the time were the very first modern sewing patterns that came in a print and PDF format. At the time, we were in sizes 12 to 28, and then in cup sizes C, D, E, F, and G, H, which means that even if you have an H cup bust, And in many cases, actually bigger than that. We've had people who are like J or K. You can just fit it without having to do full bust alterations, without having to do like endless adjustments. So that's where it originated. Over the years, first we expanded our sizing up. So we went up to a size 32. And then recently, and I know we're going to talk about this more, we've actually gone all the way down to a 0. So now sewists who are a size 0 to a size 32, who have boobs bigger than a C cup, can basically fit our patterns.
And your recent sizing change, how did that come about? And like, what kind of response have you had to it?
So it's an interesting one in terms of like the evolution of the market. So as I mentioned, in 2010, almost nobody was doing plus size, right? Like it was incredibly unusual. And what was there, honestly, like was not great. Like it was almost always like the very simplest things or things that I just didn't want to wear. Like I was 30 years old and also not ashamed of myself, like not ashamed of my body. I wasn't looking to cover it up. Like one of the most popular plus size sewing books literally was telling me like, don't wear horizontal stripes, which for those of you watching the video, literally I'm wearing right now, or like don't wear bright colors. And I was like, no, this isn't how I want to feel. And then by 2015, when I launched Cashmerette, it was still very limited amount of things available in plus size. Now, in the last 6 years, there's actually been a real flourishing. Are we all the way there that all patterns are available in wide sizes? Absolutely not. But there is a woman who runs a website called the Curvy Pattern Database, and there are dozens and dozens and dozens. I think there may even be over 100 now pattern companies that are going to at least a 60-inch hip. So there's been a huge amount of growth since we launched in 2015. So that has been fantastic. So it reached a point where we're like, okay, well, how, what are we going to do next? Like, where do we go from here? And ever since we launched, from the day we launched, we've had women who are smaller than a size 12 saying, I'm an F cup. I don't fit in anything. I want to be able to make clothes without a full bust adjustment. I want to be able to make your clothes. And very deliberately, for a long time, that is not who I prioritized because plus size sewists have been left out of so much. It was like, no, that's where we're going to focus and we're going to get that going really, really well. But once we reached this point where it's like, wow, there's now dozens and dozens of options available. And we thought about where should we expand? That seemed to be like the thing that made sense. So what we're doing, we're in a process. The next pattern we come out with will be our first one. That's from size 0 to size 32. And from moving forward, they will all be. And then in addition, we're going back and updating our most popular patterns. So far, the Appleton wrap dress, which has an innovative construction, so it just doesn't gape. We've literally had like elementary school teachers saying, this is like 5-year-old boy friendly. Like it's a really sort of like a remarkable thing that looks amazing on anyone who's curvy. And then we recently launched the Concord t-shirt, which is actually our single best-selling pattern, which is kind of funny, right? We have all these like super exciting ones, but the t-shirt is what sells the most. We just launched that in our smaller sizes too. And we have another one coming up next month. So we have like a whole pattern of things coming up now. So moving forward, what we're really about is like including lots and lots of sewists and really focusing on being the people that know how to give you patterns that you don't have to adjust if you've got big boobs.
Wonderful.
Well, Jenny, how do you? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, sorry, Carol. I just had a quick logistical question. For a lot of the big 4 pattern makers, when they get into a really wide size range, they have to split the patterns into, 2 options.
Yeah.
Did you have to do that, or?
Yeah, we absolutely did. Yeah. So, as many plus size people know, there is a lot of issues with grading. And especially when something has been planned for a small person, if there isn't good grading done, it's almost like it's just gone on a Xerox machine, that they just assumed all of you get bigger. And, many of us have experienced these sort of hilarious situations where we're like, my arms are not 5 foot long. And also my head doesn't get bigger if I eat more cakes. Like it stays the same size.
Yeah.
And so you run into all of these like really problematic grading situations if you just try and take a single size and expand it out and out and out and out. Now, the same thing goes for us going the other way. So what we do is we have 2 base sizes. So for our plus size range, it's like an 18-20, which as it happens is about what I am, but that's a coincidence. It's not because that's the size I am. It's the middle of our range. And then in our straight size range, it's a size 8. So what we do is we then grade up. So there are 2 size ranges you can therefore buy, 0 to 16 or 12 to 32. So there's an overlap. And that's really, really important because in our research, we found that over 80% of sewists grade between sizes. So over 80% of people are not like a 18, 18, 18 or a 12, 12, 12. They're like, oh, I'm an 18. In fact, that's me too, right? I'm an 18 bust, a 20 to 22 waist, and a 16 hip, which thank goodness for sewing, right? Because you cannot buy that in a shop. But we found that that's basically the key to why you have the overlapping, because people need to be able to access multiple sizes. So if we did, 0 to 10 and 12 to 32, if you had a 10 bust and a 14 hip, you would have, it wouldn't work. So we have this overlap. In those overlapping sizes, we actually have lots of guidance on our blog to people about how do you pick, right? If you're a 14, what do? You could be in either one of them. For some people, it's simple. It's more like, well, I tend to trend downwards from that, or I tend to trend upwards from that. But there are also subtle differences. Like, for instance, plus size women tend to have higher waists. That is a thing that we have basically shown over time. And I think it's just kind of the way one tends to get bigger. The narrowest part of you tends to go up and up and up. So for a lot of people, including me, the narrowest point is really only 2 or 3 inches below your bra. In smaller people, that tends to be less often the case. None of this is absolute, right? Some plus size people have lower waists and some straight size people have higher waists. But broadly speaking, we're seeing that. So the smaller range, for instance, has a bit of a lower waist, as an example. When you're plus size and have big boobs, they also take up a lot of your torso, which contributes to this short-waistedness, which again, in the straight size, we see a little bit less. So there are nuances. So if you compare the 12 and 16 and the 2 ranges, they're not identical. They're different. And we help people all the time. We also say, if you try one of the ranges and it doesn't fit you well, we will just send you the other one for free, because obviously it's not an exact science. So if you think that, we will just send you one.
Well, I went into your website and put my measurements into the sizing help function that you have. Sarah, I don't know if you've done this. You put your measurements in and it says you're going to want a size this at the top, and then you're going to grade out to here, and then you're going to grade out a little bit more at the bottom, and then that's what we think will fit you, which was amazing. I thought that was great. You don't have to measure all those patterns and figure it out. So that was really helpful.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a sort of aha moment I had last year, because I come from a background in consumer products and marketing, and you're always thinking about the end user of your product. And I realized that oh my goodness, well over half of our customer service was, what size should I pick? And if you hang out on Facebook groups for sewing, it's overwhelmingly the question people ask, right? Because they're very confused if they're between sizes. With our patterns, they're confused about what cup size to make, especially if it doesn't link to the bra they wear. And because a lot of people don't wear the right size bra, right? They might think that they're a double D, but they're really a G, and they're confused. There's all that. And so I was having the discussion with my team, and I was like, this is a science, not an art. We know what size people are when they email us. It's not, we don't have to wonder about it. We look at the chart. And I was like, I wonder if there was a way to make a calculator where people just type the numbers in and it told them, including grading between sizes, or if you have to do a full bust adjustment, if so, by how much. So it was a huge project. It is unbelievably complex. You would not believe how complex this is. And we also added putting your bra size in, because sometimes there's anomalies between what you would think someone was on their measurements, but actually what bra they're wearing. So a huge amount of work went into it. But the good news is we've had amazing feedback on it, because it basically just reduces a very high anxiety point for a lot of sewists. And also quite a few people got a different size than they've been making, tried it, and was like, hallelujah, this fits me amazingly now. So yeah, it was an awful lot of work. I will say it only works for Cashmerette. Some people have thought oh, this works for all sewing patterns. Everyone has different sizing, so it doesn't. It only works for us. But it's definitely the place to start for anybody.
Yeah, I think that people are generally confused about their size even in ready to wear. You sort of think, oh, I wear this size. And it's never the same from company to company. So you then think there's something wrong. I mean, everybody who sews has some level of logic within them, I think. And so that they would, but we still kind of think there's something wrong with me today. I'm wearing a bigger size than usual, or, oh, look at how good I am today. My size is smaller. It's just a different brand or a different cut or whatever it is. And then if you translate that into sewing patterns, especially if you get different brands, you can get equally confused. Because as you say, the sewing patterns, generally the size is not the same as ready to wear.
And you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the two issues, right? The one is just the literal, like, it's hard to figure out. So I hope our sizing calculator has fixed that. But the other one is the emotional one. And that is enormous. So many people come to sewing because they feel bad about their body in ready-to-wear clothes. And then all of a sudden, they feel bad again, right? Like they're having to measure themselves and like they're not what they thought they were. And obviously, you know, we all know that sewing pattern numbers are different than ready-to-wear numbers. So people are like, no, I'm a 12. Why are you saying I'm an 18? And for me, it's a really interesting point. Like, and it's one that I talk about a lot when I do classes and things like that. The first one is that the measurements are like ingredients in a recipe. So if you read a cake recipe and it says there's 2 cups of flour in it, you don't go like, oh, 2 cups of flour, eh? That's a lot of flour. No, you just like put 2 cups of flour in, then you make a cake and it's nice. It's the same. If my waist is 42 inches, the waistband of my skirt needs to be, for the sake of argument, 42 inches. And then I'll have an amazing skirt. What judgment you put on that, it doesn't matter. It's just the ingredient, right? Like it's just the data input to make a piece of clothing that looks really nice on me. It's neutral. For people who are still struggling, one thing I recommend is using the opposite measurement you're used to. So for instance, if 42 inches is like sort of a triggering number, like, oh, who wants to be that? But I don't even know what the equivalent is. But if it's 138 centimeters, I have no idea if I just did that correctly. But like if it's 132 centimeters, I'd be like, well, okay, that means nothing to me, right? Like I don't measure in centimeters. I don't know. So I'm always trying to encourage people to think about that because we tend to judge ourselves versus like whether you fit in X random piece of clothing. It's like they're judging you or like the clothing's making you feel bad about yourself. And fundamentally, like there's nothing wrong with your body, right? Like the fact that you don't fit that item of clothing is the clothes' fault, not your body's fault. And so that's, you know, the fundamental idea that I try to sort of evangelize around through Cashmerette. Like, and even in simple language, right? Like your arm isn't too big for a sleeve. The sleeve's just too small. And you know what? You can change the sleeve really, really easily. Can you change your arm? Probably not. Or even if you wanted to change your arm, it's extremely difficult to change your arm. But I tell you what, changing a sleeve, like you learn how to do the adjustment, you can do it tomorrow. And I think once you really take that on, like you really let those ideas sink in, it's actually quite a profound thing.
It's wonderful that your patterns are so nuanced and that you have so much information available. Because I was going to ask you, if you meet someone in a class or someone gets in touch with you and they're a new sewer and they're apprehensive about fitting, what words of encouragement or beginning advice would you give them?
So it's a funny one because when I first started sewing, I remember thinking I might eventually be able to make a t-shirt, but I would never be able to make it fit me. Like that was my thought. I was like, fitting just seemed like magic, like overwhelming. And especially because some people are so into fitting and and they're like, I think I need to move this shoulder by like a 16th of an inch down. What do you think, guys? And I would be like, how would you know that? Like, what is going on? So I have a lot of sympathy to people starting and being like, ugh. So I basically have like 2 tips for people. The first tip is, if it's at all possible, make a pattern that already comes in your size that is made for your body shape. So for instance, Cashmerette patterns are made for curvy people who have big boobs. So if you have big boobs, don't start with something for a B cup. It's going to be really hard. Like it's quite, you know, a certain amount of advanced knowledge you have to take like a button down shirt for a B and make it fit your J cup. Like that's going to be really hard. Like start where it's easiest. Start with patterns in your size. Now, there's a privilege in saying that because if today you're a size 38, like you actually might not be able to find anything. But if you can, then absolutely start where you can. We actually have a guide on our website, not just to Cashmerette, but across the industry to like sewing patterns that come in a variety of sizes. So go on there and find a brand that already fits you, if you possibly can. That's my starting point. The second thing is learn to grade between sizes. So like I already mentioned, to me, and it's funny because it's overlooked as such a basic skill. Like once you've been sewing for a while, it's like, well, yeah, that's obvious. But it's not obvious. When you're a brand new sewer, like what I find all the time is people saying, well, the biggest bit of me is a 24, so I'll make a 24. Because in a shop, that's true, right? The biggest bit of you needs to fit in the clothes. Well, that's what leads to like shoulders falling off your shoulders and sleeves that are too long, or like things that are massively baggy around your bum or too tight in other places. Learning to grade between sizes, which is literally just join the dots, right? Like in most patterns, in most simple patterns, it's not a difficult thing to do. If that's all you do, you will have improved your fit 90% over what you can buy in a shop, right? That's my issue now. Like sewing has ruined me for clothes shopping because I go in and I'm like, hi, I'd like a 20 bust, 22 waist and a 16 hip in this dress, please, right? Like they're like, no, this is stretchy. It might fit you. So I think, honestly, being able to like pick something that's in the right size range for you, learn to grade between sizes, and also compare versus what you currently wear, not versus what you think is perfect. And I learned this myself when I first made jeans. This is well before I had a jeans pattern. And I had a friend take an incredibly unflattering photo of my bum in the jeans I was wearing. And I said, okay, look, these are the jeans I've been wearing every day. And I've never like had a major problem with them. Like, I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. These are just the jeans I wear. I was a little shocked, I have to say, by the photo. The fit was significantly less good than even I realized, but fine. I was wearing those every day. And then I made my muslin and I had to do it again. And it was dramatically better. Now, were there pull lines and drag lines and things? Yeah, absolutely. But I think sometimes people think we have to aspire to like having Barbie clothes that only look good when you're standing still on Instagram and have no wrinkles, right? People get like really upset. Like there's a wrinkle. It's like, yeah, like look at normal people wearing clothes. There are wrinkles on the clothes. You have to move and it's not going to be perfect. But I tell you what, if it can be as much of an improvement over my saggy bottom Bowden jeans to my pretty decent self-made jeans, that's when you can really take that on and be like, it's not perfect, but it is radically better than what I was wearing before. So those are the main things that I tell people who are brand new.
Jenny, you mentioned a little bit about developing new styles that you couldn't find in patterns. Mm-hmm. Where do you look for inspiration for the patterns? And what kind of styles do you have in development now?
So it's funny because it's changed over time, for sure. So at the very beginning, I was like, I just want to cover like all the basics that I've never been able to wear because I couldn't find them ready to wear and I couldn't find them in sewing patterns. So literally it was like wrap dress, t-shirt, fit and flare dress, woven top, like really just hitting these key things that, to be honest, most of us wear those things every day, right? Like that's the kind of thing you actually put on. So for quite a while, I was just like, sometimes people would be like, well, this is a bit boring. I'm like, hey, if you have an H-cut bust, there hasn't been a cardigan pattern that fits you. So you might be like, why is it not terribly avant-garde? Well, the answer is because I want a cardigan that most people would like, who are in this size range and we're just starting out. Cashmerette even now is only like 5.5 years old. But over time, now that we do have a lot more of the basics, we are able to go into like more advanced patterns or things that are like a little bit different. So I'm wearing right here the Auburn blazer, which is one of our recent things, because I just really knew that I wanted a blazer and they don't really exist if you have an H-cut bust, like in a way that you could not have to like alter it all the way. But fundamentally, like, I'm about what people wear every day, which means we're not necessarily doing the like top trends. Like, and the, like, I know some sewing pattern designers are like, I watch the runway shows and I'm like, that's amazing. You sound like a very cool person. I'm not that cool. Like, I just look at what people are wearing on the street. What are people who like post about our clothes? What are they wearing? What are the other things they're wearing that aren't Cashmerette? You know, what do I see in like regular stores, right? Like, what are people buying in Ann Taylor or Club Monaco? Like, not necessarily, you know, the latest Lanvin, which is cool. And I'm really glad that there are sewing pattern companies that do that. But I think for most of us, you know, we just want to feel nice on a daily basis. And we want to wear clothes that fit us on a daily basis. So that's why, like, a lot of our clothes are sort of focused in that category. We do have special occasion things. Our Upton dress and skirt with the expansion pack is this really chunky pattern, like it's physically an inch thick, that has over 350 different combinations of bodices and skirts and sleeves. And we've had many people use that for like ball gowns and wedding dresses and whatever. But you can also, you know, people also make it out of Mickey Mouse fabric and wear it to Disney. Like, there's all kinds of things that we have. So I guess that's a convoluted answer, but basically, you know, what real people wear. I will also add the average age of someone who makes our patterns is 55. Now, that surprises some people and not others, right? I think everyone assumes that indie sewing pattern companies are very young. And they also think, well, I'm 40, so I'm not exactly that young, but people, you know, just assume that everything's focused on youth. But we're actually not. Like, our core customers are in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and they just want to look nice, right? Like, they just want to look nice on an everyday basis. So that is fundamentally who we are serving.
Well, there is definitely a trend that people have for doing a sort of a capsule wardrobe type of sewing. So your garments are perfect for that. You can definitely put together a really great wardrobe with your general versatile basics. But I would say that I really enjoy looking at your website because your models, everything is styled differently. Your models are not 55. I don't think. Mostly, I think a lot of them look younger than that to me. Maybe they are 55 and just look amazing. But you know, the fabrics that are chosen and the colors, it's all kind of fun and playful. You can tell that it's not. You don't have to be boring to wear something that's a kind of a basic piece of clothing. You have your jacket is a beautiful color. It's an unusual color for a classic blazer. That it's easy to do a lot of things with styles that are not the latest Lanvin.
Yeah. We try to show a diversity of what you can do with our products in, you know, our photo shoots, and then also who we promote. We actually have a bunch of models who are over 55, even over 60, and we sort of bring them in and mix them in. I don't even know what the average age of a model is. Probably about 40, to be honest. Like, mostly 30s and 40s is who we use. But yeah, like, ultimately, and I think sewing people realize this, is like what you're buying is like the technical drawing, right? Like, that's really what you're buying. It's a blueprint. What you do with it, that's up to you.
I know. I think newer sewers still have trouble making that leap, though. That's the place a lot of them need to work on their skills, to understand, to look at the technical drawing. It's important to have, you know, models who look good in the clothing and seem happy to be wearing it. And that is definitely the case on your website. In fact, I sent a friend I was talking to yesterday to your website. She was trying to sew for somebody who was probably in a plus size range. And she herself is, you know, like a size 0, 4'11" person. So for her, it's all new territory. Mm-hmm. And I said, go to Cashmerette. You'll see all the designs you might want for this person. And it'll be fun to look at. So she's, I think, been shopping there over the last day or so, awesome. Maybe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jenny, with all the nuances you build into your patterns, how long is the process from, say, concept to actually releasing a pattern?
So it varies wildly, is the answer. So I think that the shortest we've ever done anything is maybe like 4 or 5 months. However, our more complex garments and our ones that are more challenging from a fit perspective commonly take about 18 months. So with the Auburn blazer, which I'm wearing now, we always knew it would take quite a long time because, you know, sometimes it's like, why are there no patents for this? And the answer is because it's really difficult, right? Like, it's not an easy thing to develop. And we actually on our blog did a series of blog posts from the very beginning of this blazer because I sort of wanted to show people behind the curtain a bit and help people understand like how long it takes. Because I think sometimes people think like, oh, you're just whipping things out and charging this money for them. Like, what really goes on? And it's like, Far from it. We went through multiple rounds of testing on this. It changed design in the way, it changed fit during the process. And, we work with lots of people. We pay our pattern testers. That's really important to us. So there's lots and lots of people involved and lots of stages. We are working on sort of how we can make things more efficient, right? Like, I can't have everything take 18 months. That's too much. But, occasionally our blazer took a long time. The Harrison shirt, our button-down shirt, took a long time. And the jeans took a long time too. But I tell you what, those are some of our best-selling patterns. So ultimately, it's totally worth it because we're solving fit challenges that so many people have. And because they have them, they see that we did that. And, they're very happy to buy it.
Well, Jenny, it's been wonderful talking with you. We are actually out of time. I can't believe it went by so quickly. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for listening. Follow Threads on social media and visit threadsmagazine.com to view show notes for this episode. While you're on the site, check out Threads Insider, our online membership with exclusive access to expert sewing techniques. Until next time, keep on sewing with Threads.